On this program, 3 geological faces of Arizona. First, the canyons, then the volcanoes, and finally, a meteorite crater. Arizona offers visitors 1,000 splendors to excite their insatiable curiosity. Lush deserts give way to raging rivers. Venomous lizards seek the shade of 100-year-old cacti. But what shapes Arizona above all is one of the world's natural wonders, the Grand Canyon. Water, wind, and temperature changes sculpt the earth. They create an astonishing variety of spectacular reliefs. The deep gorges we call canyons are not the result of construction, but rather of demolition. The masterpiece of such natural architecture is without a doubt the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon was carved by the Colorado River, whose surging and murky waters originate in the Rocky Mountains. The Colorado flows more than 2,320 kilometers through the American Southwest before pouring into the Gulf of California. The Grand Canyon is actually one of a series of canyons that the Colorado is slowly carving out. What sets the Grand Canyon apart are its awesome dimensions. In some places, the breathtaking gorge is more than 30 kilometers wide and some 1,600 meters deep. Because the Grand Canyon is located on a high plateau and is so very deep, various types of vegetation are able to thrive there. The Grand Canyon offers many natural environments, ranging from desert at the chasm's bottom to subarctic forest on its highest rim. Indeed, various species of conifer able to tolerate aridity grow along the canyon's rims. The most common are juniper, pinyon pine, and ponderosa pine. All this vegetation, while sparse, contributes to the erosion of the canyon. The young trees often take root in cracks in the rocks. As they grow, their roots exert a powerful pressure that splits the rock. Even lichen, a plant by all appearances inoffensive, produces an acid that breaks down even the hardest rock. But the dominant agent of rock destruction is water. As rain or melted snow, water infiltrates the cracks in the rocks. As a result of freeze-thaw action, the water expands the cracks until the rock next to it shatters. Rock fragments disintegrate into sand, which is blown away by the wind. Some fragments fall directly into the river. Carried along by the river waters, these debris of varying sizes act as sharp excavation tools. Not all rocks, however, react similarly to the assaults of water. These gentle slopes were formed by the crumbling of shales, a very friable rock. But these steep cliffs, composed of hard rock, such as limestone and sandstone, were slowly sliced out over centuries of water erosion. A striking example of how hard rock weathers is the Canyon de Chelly, located in the eastern part of Arizona. Indeed, the cliffs of this canyon, composed of highly resistant sandstone, are practically vertical. In the Grand Canyon, the presence of rock of varying hardness has created terraced slopes. This type of formation is also due to the fact that the upper layers of rock have been exposed to erosion longer than those much farther down. Geologists estimate that the Grand Canyon was formed over the last 4 to 5 million years. But the rocks the Colorado laid bare at the bottom of the canyon were formed about 2 billion years ago, almost half of the Earth's estimated age. Above these dark rocks which form the river banks lie horizontal strata of sedimentary rocks, deposited in layer cake fashion. Each layer contains sediments which represent the kind of landscape that existed at the time that particular layer was formed. This shows that over a period of 350 million years, such diverse landscapes as seas, deserts, and floodplains succeeded each other. Canyons like Duche or El Muerto also reveal remnants of a less distant past, that of human civilization. Indeed, for the past 2,000 years or so, Native American peoples such as the Anasazi, the Hopi, then the Navajo made these places their home. There they found fertile lands as well as a year-round source of water. In cliff alcoves, they built large masonry dwellings. Made from sandstone taken from the canyon walls, these structures could house several families. The landscape we see there today is probably much the same as it was during the time of the first Anasazi settlement. The erosion process is exceedingly slow. Humans therefore cannot observe the transformations it brings.
Do you know the story about Lot's wife? She was turned into a pillar of salt for daring to watch the destruction of Sodom. A forest in Arizona kind of reminds me of the fate of that curious woman. Its trees were petrified under a downpour of ash and cinder. Now, these were not the result of the wrath of Yahweh, but a volcanic eruption.
Volcanoes are geological phenomena that can alter a landscape in a time frame observable by humans. However, what they leave in their wake remains long after the fact. A volcanic eruption occurs when magma, which is molten rock, and the gases it contains, finds an opening in the Earth's crust through which it can pour out onto the Earth's surface. Volcanic eruptions vary greatly according to the chemistry of the magma and its gas content. For example, a liquid magma low in gas content produces a quiet eruption. It forms a lava flow that advances slowly over great distances. One lava flow that erupted from Arizona's Sunset Crater, for example, covered an area of several square kilometers. The lava is extremely hot when it emerges, but cools quickly and forms a crust on its surface. When gases in the liquid magma escape, they create small craters in that crust. As it cools, the lava becomes viscous. The flow is then thick and slow-moving, building up in spots. Once solidified, these thick lava flows resemble a series of jagged waves. By contrast, if the magma is high in dissolved gases, the eruption is explosive. Indeed, as the magma nears the surface, the loss of pressure permits the gases to expand. This expansion causes the magma to be blown into the air as separate fragments, which solidify as they fall to the surface. Some fragments, known as bombs, are more than 64 millimeters in diameter. Fragments between 2 and 64 millimeters in diameter are called lapilli. The bombs and lapilli fall round the crater where they pile up over the course of repeated eruptions. As they pile up, these fragments gradually form the cone of the volcano. During explosive eruptions, a large amount of magma is also disintegrated and falls back to the surface in a shower of ashes. A fine example is the symmetrical cone of Sunset Crater. "700 years after its extinction, Sunset Crater remains virtually intact. Vegetation still struggles to reclaim the debris and cinder-littered terrain. The first plants to grow are lichens. Lichens produce an acid which breaks down cinders. The lichens eventually produce tiny pockets of soil in which mosses take hold. When a sufficient amount of soil has built up, small plants take root. Shrubs follow, such as junipers, whose stronger roots crack the rock. Finally, imposing trees, such as the ponderosa pine, manage to anchor their roots where the soil is more abundant. Volcanic ash can, for its part, contribute to the petrification of dead plants and animals. The many multicolored logs that sprawl across the painted desert of Arizona are a good example. Petrification is a fossilization process in which organic matter is gradually replaced by minerals. These petrified logs are the fossils of immense conifers dating back 225 million years. The remains of these giant trees were buried under a thin layer of mud. By cutting off the supply of oxygen, the mud protected the trees from decay. To this mud was added a blanket of ashes thrown out of nearby volcanoes. Then mud and sand continued to build up over the trees until the latter were buried under hundreds of feet of sediment. Groundwater percolating through the sediments dissolved silica, a mineral from the volcanic ash. The silica-rich water finally reached the logs, then filtered into their tissues. The silica precipitated from solution as microscopic quartz crystals in the woody tissues. During the crystallization process, other elements present in the water combined with the silica. These elements dyed in various colors the crystals of quartz, which in its pure state is white. Iron produced warm shades, ranging from yellow and brown to red. Carbon and manganese left traces of black. The cooler shades, such as blue, green, and mauve, are due to cobalt, copper, and manganese. Then, 70 million years ago, the region was raised up. This caused the petrified logs to crack and break into segments. Indeed, although extremely hard, quartz is brittle and can shatter like glass. It was therefore unable to withstand the tremendous stress of the Earth movements. Then the wind and water eroded away the layers of sediment, exposing the petrified logs. While volcanoes are generally devastating, their ashes have sometimes preserved remains that tell us a great deal about the evolution of our planet.
When you travel across Arizona, you can't help thinking about the landscapes of distant planets. It's no wonder astrologists do their research there.
Humans have always been fascinated by the celestial bodies. Modern technology has made it possible for us to get closer to some of these planets. Indeed, camera-carrying satellites now send back to Earth a myriad of images of the surface of the planets in our solar system. These images are transmitted to Earth-based stations in the form of digital data. Based on this data, computers synthesize an image composed of a multitude of tiny points called pixels. Each pixel represents a portion of the surface of the planet. Venus, for example. Powerful computer programs interpret the data. They will create a 3D image of the surface of the planet under study. An imaginary camera can even move about in that Venusian landscape, transmitting stunning images of every detail of its surface. This animation of the Los Angeles region in California was produced with the help of a Landsat satellite image. The animation was done by a computer that can perform 4 million operations a second. The full 2-minute animation took 5.5 days of computer time. It comprises 2.6 billion bits. Digital display programs can be used to filter the foggy atmosphere surrounding the planet, or to generate colors to facilitate site reconnaissance. They can even be used to rotate the image so that the topography can be seen from every angle. So we thus fly over the San Andreas Fault, or take an Olympian leap over the San Gabriel Mountains. Based on their observations of Earth geological phenomena, the astrogeologists were able to recreate the surfaces of other planets in 3D animation. For instance, analysis of satellite pictures of the surface of the planet Mars revealed that the planet had been subjected to considerable erosion. Among others, the scientists described a gigantic canyon many times larger than Arizona's Grand Canyon. These observations suggest that there was a time when water was very abundant on Mars. However, today there is absolutely no water on that planet, and yet the images show evidence of shapes very similar to sand dunes and volcanoes. Still, the geological maps drawn by planetary geologists are only interpretations of reality, since they are based almost solely on synthesized images. With the exception of the Moon, our knowledge of the various bodies of the solar system comes from distant observations. More direct observations are sometimes possible, as when a meteorite falls to Earth. Besides the 9 major planets and their satellites, the solar system comprises thousands of smaller planets called asteroids. The asteroids revolved around the Sun in an orbit located between Mars and Jupiter. Asteroids frequently collide. The fragments of matter caused by these collisions sometimes drift into the Earth's gravitational field, at which point they are captured. The fragment then enters the atmosphere at such a speed that the air friction heats it to incandescence. It then becomes visible to us as a shooting star. As it travels through the atmosphere, the fragment shatters to pieces. Sometimes a large fragment will make it through the atmosphere without completely disintegrating. When they crash into the Earth's surface, these fragments, which are then called meteorites, cause great depressions similar to that of Meteor Crater in Arizona. Scientists estimate that Meteor Crater was produced by a mass of iron and nickel, approximately 35 meters in diameter and weighing several million tons. Most of that mass is thought to have vaporized on impact. 10% is thought to have sunk more than 200 meters into the ground. Unlike the Earth, the asteroids that meteorites come from are inert bodies. They are believed to have remained unchanged since their formation when the solar system was created. By analyzing the meteorite fragments found on Earth, scientists calculate that the solar system, and hence our planet, was formed 4,600,000,000 years ago.
The Sunset Crater volcano was almost featured in a film once. In 1928, a company wanted to dynamite the crater to simulate an eruption. Fortunately, they were stopped in time. Oh, filmmakers. In fact, one of them even...
Go!